Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to get into another anniversary guide. And this time, it's of course going to be based off of all of the new characters that you're going to have available in Phase 2. And boy, oh boy, do we have some exciting ones available for all of you today. We, of course, have Ciaccona, and of course, every single unit that's going to be on the Phase 2 banner. You've got plenty more to choose from Changli to Carlotta to Roccia to Brant. And boy, oh boy, I feel like these characters are all unique enough to talk about and give some general pointers and tips to, so that you all can give them a spin, give them a try if you are looking to actually pick up any of these 6 characters on banner. But before we dive in, let's talk about browsers. The one you're using right now probably sucks. That's where today's sponsor, Opera GX, comes in. You're probably tired of the bland, boring experiences you have on Chrome, Edge, or Safari, and with Opera GX's incredible mod feature, you can easily spice up your experience through GX mods, like featuring your favorite gacha character, Mind Shorekeeper, across your entire setup. Customize your browser with epic themes, sound effects, and visuals inspired by the game or anime world you love, and you have no pity, no 50/50s, and just endless customization. You can even mix and match your favorite mods and create your own unique browsing experience. If you're ever multitasking, like watching my Ciaccona guide while also playing the game, you can use GX's incredible video pop-out feature with adjustable frames, letting you slot in the perfect Sonata sets and weapons on your units without any wasted time. One click on the left when you're playing a video will let you multitask whenever, wherever you want. Opera GX has a lot more, but the last thing I'll mention is how easily you can migrate your existing browser data into GX. Things like history, bookmarks, passwords, and cookies, all with a single button press. If you've previously been using Chrome, like me, it's also compatible with all extensions. To download Opera GX, just click my link below. Big thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. One thing to keep in mind is that before we actually get into the guide, I want to talk about the banners themselves. This is the best weapon banner in the game that we have ever had in the history of the game. And the reason for that is you're able to pick up this one weapon called Variation, which is essentially the best support rectifier in the game. If you have this at R5, if you have multiple copies of this at R5, it's going to make your gameplay feel so much more smooth and so much more engaging across your supports with how fast your rotations are going to be. And so I highly recommend, if you are looking to pick up these weapons, if you are willing to spend or you have saved, I would say aside from Rocia's weapon, which is ironic that I have it pulled up over here, these are all extremely strong, extremely high value weapons, especially for its signature users. But things like the Last Dance, Blazing Brilliance, and Ages of Harvest, they're all really good general weapons too. And so if you just don't even have a 5-star weapon and you're just looking to pick one up from the signature pool, these 3 are some of the best like general use case ones that we have in the game. Unflickering Valor is a little bit more specific for Brant, but it's really good on him. And Tragic Comedy, well, its name speaks enough. Don't prioritize it. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and start off by going through the characters that we're going to be testing out in the TOA, showing off some rotations for, and give you some general tips. This is going to be a bit more geared towards average play, but we will get into some advanced mechanics for all of you, especially when it comes to characters that might have some, pretty easy to replicate cancels. Think things like, Jeja's jump cancels. But we won't be going into stuff like Jinhsi's jump cancels or anything like that because they're, let's be honest here, a little bit spastic. So with that, let's get ourselves started off. We'll be testing out most of our rotations on good old Glizzy Rider over here, just ready for us because a lot of the other bosses, there's either going to be multiple waves or they're really annoying to fight. So when it comes to Jinhsi, she's a unit that basically wants to eat every single intro skill on your team. And she works with quite a few typical units that you're probably going to have. You can either pop her in with a Varina or a Shorekeeper. And we'll be showing you what sample rotations look like with both characters, using, of course, a G-Jaw as one of her best in slot supports. You can always replace her with Cantarella, and we'll be showing a rotation with both of those units, to be honest. So when it comes to this, let me just make sure I got some gear ready to go. We're just going to be using a String Master on all of our rectifier supports to make it as easy as possible. We've got our coordinated set right here for Jeja. And we'll just show you what the rotation looks like. This is my Jinhsi. This is her investment. You can see over here, she's only had 100% ER. That's going to cause some slight complications in my rotation, and I'll show you all exactly what I mean by that. So let's go ahead. Let's just make sure everybody's all geared up. Varina's at 235 ER. Let's give it a bit of a spin. So now that we've started it off, one thing you always want to do on Jinhsi is start off with a basic attack chain, right? And then just quickly get to your enhanced skill as fast as possible. Then you're going to intro skill onto Jeja. Cast her liberation. Use Hikari too if you want. And then go on to Verena. Do her basic attack chain to get her Forte Circuit, then press her skill, and then cast Verena's liberation, right? And then max out the Concerto, go over to Jinhsi, cast her liberation, use her Echo skill, and then rotate through out with her. Blast the laser beam, intro skill back onto Jeja, use her Forte Circuit combo, throw in a jump cancel if you want, and go back to Jinhsi. And then blast. Right? Then go back to Jeja. Go back over here. Oh, okay. And then just do the same exact thing on Verena again. Right? And that's kind of just that. And this is where not having 100% ER is a little bit annoying. You'll notice that I had the basic attack to fill up my Concerto there. But I do have it on this rotation. And that'll be that for this team. That's basically just how this unit works. She's actually quite simple to use. One of the most simple playstyles in the game. You just make sure that she eats every single intro skill, and the intro skills that she gives to Jeja, she eats all of those. And the reason why that team is like so seamless to use is pretty simple. Jinhsi has some special mechanics where in her kit, she requires coordinated attacks from other members of her team to charge her Forte Circuit. And the more coordinated attacks fire off, the more her Forte Circuit's gonna deal. And she also has a special ability where after blasting with that enhanced skill and the Dragon Vomit, she will immediately grant an intro skill to somebody else on her team. And that's what Jeja ends up using. So great stuff over there. And when she uses that outro skill, right, and gives it to Jeja, she increases the amount of additional charge on her Forte Circuit that she is going to get. So yeah, that's kind of like one rotation on this team. You're going to notice my Jinhsi isn't like the most well-invested ever. She does have a decent amount of resonance skill damage bonus, but nothing too crazy to write home about. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be trying out this team with Cantarella because there might be some people that actually own her. And Cantarella is, in my opinion, kind of a clunky unit, so it's like, it is what it is. But yeah, we'll get into what the rotation looks like with this team. And when it comes to Cantarella, she can oftentimes actually have higher performance than Jeja, but it's a lot easier to mess up her gameplay. Like, really bad. So, let's just go ahead. Let's try it all out and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, you're going to do the same exact intro, right? You're going to make sure to skill on Cantarella first before Jinhsi goes into and does all of her stuff. This allows Cantarella to have a charge of her Forte Circuit. Then you're going to go back onto Cantarella, then Liberation, right?
Into the endless deep.
And then do the same exact thing on Verena that we just did before, right? Go on to Jinhsi. Use her whole thing. And then boom, go from there, right? Then you're gonna have to fill out your Forte Circuit over here. Heavy attack. Do all that, and then go on to Jinhsi. Right? Make sure you use your Delusive Dive on Cantarella. You'll notice she has a lot of charge relative to some of the other teams we're using. Go back onto here.
Sleep.
Do a little bit of this, right? And then you just keep rotating. And then that's the rotation with the Cantarella team. And you're gonna notice here, without my liberation, right? I gotta do the whole basic attack chain.
Right here. Come on out, little critter.
Strike is one. Oh, stars.
It's a little bit longer without Jeja's built-in ER. And so if your Jinhsi has like 120 plus ER, Cantarella might be the better option. But if she doesn't, it might be better to use Jeja because of that additional energy
Engulfed.
regeneration.
By
So yeah,
sea's venom.
that's that one. That's what the rotation looks like with the team. I did miss a couple of crits, but, you know, we're not out here to get the fastest speed run footage ever. So that's what that team looks like off the bat. Now, we're going to do a bit of a special showcase over here and show what it looks like with Shorekeeper. And we'll give this one a try. So we're just going to stick with Cantarella.
Fluorescent shadows. Evil be cleansed.
Kind of like just go from here. Oh, whoopsies. Do make sure if you're doing multiple runs of Jinhsi in the TOA, her cooldown on her free outro skill will not actually expire between runs. And so that's why I didn't get it there. So make sure you wait a little bit if...
So be it.
Oh, dear. All right. Do keep in mind that if you do end up getting hit sometimes, doing a dodge on Jinhsi will make
I'll keep you company.
that ability come out faster.
Into the endless deep.
Stay calm.
And now we're just going to go ahead, generate our concerto on Shorekeeper.
Astral modulation. Together we fight. Heaven ordains. Banish all vice. So be it.
And you're going to notice that we don't have nearly as much concerto generation, unfortunately. That's because, well, we're using Shorekeeper, right?
Take a breath. A night here. To sunken depth.
Strike is one.
But it can still be enough sometimes. And we are missing some crits somehow.
Hey. Engulfed.
And
by
unfortunately,
sea's venom.
it does appear that we
Engraft you
missed
need.
Cancerella's perception drain.
Together
So
we
that's
fight.
another thing to keep in mind. That's something that can happen as well. So you're noticing that I'm completely skipping discernment in this rotation. That's pretty much the best way you want to go about actually playing this team. Discernment by itself is like not
Fresh forth.
Strike is one.
that important to get out in this lineup because you're just trying to get those nukes off as fast as possible.
Sacred light.
And yeah, that's what the team looks like with a Shorekeeper. If you are interested in doing it, you can kind of just do the same exact thing with Jeja using some of the gameplay that we have listed out over here. And so you're noticing, right, it's just about intro skilling onto a support and then getting off the coordinated attack as fast as possible. And then intro skilling onto Jinhsi again, using either the support's outro buff or the sub DPS's outro buff, and then just kind of like going from there. When it comes to the gear that we're going to be putting on these teams, Jinhsi just always uses Celestial Light with the Jue Echo. Jue gives resonant skill damage, which is like nice, a 16% bonus. And then, you know, Celestial Light just works on intro skill, which she's spamming in all of her lineups to get to her enhanced state faster. And then you're going to go ahead and on Cantarella, right?
Tides have
Or Jeja.
whispered of
I
your
typically like running a coordinated attack set, but you can also do with Moonlit Clouds too if you just want to buff Jinhsi's damage even more. Moonlit Clouds is going to give bigger buffs, but it's going to reduce their personal damage on the units that you're actually going to have supporting her. So that's just some of the options you could run with this team. All right, that's going to be our Jinhsi section. So now let's move on. So we're going to be moving on to Carlotta next because of one simple reason. I don't actually want to cover Changli unless she is with Brant. We'll be talking about her separately, of course, but it is kind of important to talk about those two units together because when it comes to Changli, she's kind of like a package deal. If you only have her, she's not really that good of a unit, and you got to keep in mind that she kind of requires a teammate to function properly, and you want to keep some of her best teammates, which are going to be on banner, in mind as well. So I kind of want to pair the two of them together so we can talk about them in order. So the next unit up is going to be Carlotta, and she is, in my opinion, the easiest to use character in the game. So let me go ahead. Let me make sure our Jeja actually has gear. And you're going to notice I'm just using the same exact set, the coordinated attack set, and we will be switching over the String Master to talk about this one. This is, without a doubt, the easiest team in the game for a couple of reasons. They have a lot of built-in survivability, a lot of iframes, and even like CC as well. So when you're starting off a Carlotta team, what you're going to want to do is wait until the boss is vulnerable, if it doesn't have an iframe at the start, and then just double E. And then go over to Shorekeeper or your support. It could be a Verena too. And then just fill up their concerto. That's wrong. You want to do something else, actually. I filled up my concerto too fast because my variations are 5. So let's start that again. Switch over to Shorekeeper, right, after doing a double E. And then go over to Jeja. And then make sure you get off a normal attack chain. Then you're going to top off your concerto on your Shorekeeper. And then when you go onto Jeja, you should have a full Forte circuit, right? And that means
Here comes a helper.
you can just quickly go through Jeja's rotation using your jump cancels. And then boom. Just go through Carlotta's rotation where you double E, plunge, then use her enhanced heavy attack. And then you just fire off the liberation shots. And he's kind of dead here. To end the rotation, you'll typically use another double skill and then your echo skill at the end while you're in the air, and then go back onto Shorekeeper to finish it up. Unfortunately, my Carlotta is S3, so we just hit him with the Blicky, and he's completely terminated. So we might actually have to take it into a different form of content. We might have to go into the overdrive zone to actually showcase what I'm talking about over here. Let's go against Crownless real fast so we can actually show what's going on. Take out her weapon. I want to see the big damage numbers. So yeah, here we go. Oh dear. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Iron graft, you need.
So as you're seeing over here, boom, boom, boom. And we just are casting the same exact thing that we used to.
My compliment.
So yeah, skill, plunge, heavy attack, and now liberation.
The world is mine.
And then we just fire off the shots.
Masterpiece.
And
complete.
hit that final one. And then we skill, echo skill, and then back onto Shorekeeper.
From the soul. Recognize me. In war with time. Insta-painting captured the spark.
And we just rotate throughout the team.
My compliment.
And that'll be it. So the overdrive zone crownless still has, you know, a little bit of survival. Not too much though. But yeah, that's what it looks like over here. Now you might have another question. Oh boy, what if I'm using her with a different support? And this is the thing. Carlotta actually has some pretty good use cases with some more affordable options. And this is where we're actually going to show off Tao Chi. Because boy, oh boy, there is one very specific sort of like peck you can use where it's actually Tao Chi and Verena. And this, in my opinion, is a actual very good team if you're looking for affordability. So let's go ahead. Let's break it all down. We're using Tao Chi on Discord and Moonlit Clouds.
Take this.
And we're actually going to go on to Tao Chi over here, use her skill, then just do Verena's rotation, right?
I got your back.
And then go on to Tao Chi. Fill up her concerto. And now we're on to Carlotta, right? Boom, boom.
You will yield.
We have Tao Chi's outro skill buff, which is 38% resonant skill damage. Very good. You're noticing that the damage per shot is only like 5,000 below Jeja. And then we double skill. Do all that, and then we actually go on to Tao Chi.
This is my ground.
Right?
How reliable. Luminous energy.
And then we actually intro skill onto her, right? And you notice how much faster the second rotation is.
My compliment. Running won't save you.
That's a pretty fast one, boys. And unfortunately, my ER is a little bit low on my Carlotta, so we're unfortunately not able to, like, I guess, finish this fight off properly. The only problem you have with this team is that Carlotta does need a fair amount of ER. Otherwise, your rotations will not even be close to smooth.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, she needs about 120 Something along
Still,
those
I
lines.
got your back. Recognize me?
But yeah, I only have 107, and that's why we're having some delays. Just something to keep in mind for that team if you are running that rotation. 120 plus ER is typically where you want to be. Otherwise, you might end up in that awkward situation like me. I'm going to take a look at Carlotta's echoes. So when it comes to Carlotta, if you're not using Frosty Resolve with the Sentry Construct, you're just griefing. This is probably the strongest DPS echo set in the game. It gives like 70% damage. It's actually not balanced. I don't know why they put it in the game and made it this strong. It gives so much damage bonus, it actually doesn't make sense. So that is going to be our Carlotta teams. Now let's go ahead and check out our next unit. That next unit we're going to be checking out today, ladies and gentlemen, will actually be Roccia. And boy, oh boy, is this character a bit of a doozy sometimes. Because I've got a great build on her. I probably should put her signature on, but that would require leveling it. So we're not going to do that right now. And we will be using her with Camul. And why does Camul have nothing on her? All right. She's going to be at about 120 ER, almost 300% critical damage. She's got some good stuff going on. And the idea is that Roccia is typically going to be supporting a unit like this. And the main focus is actually going to be Roccia's rotation. And let's be honest here, it's pretty damn easy to do, but unfortunately it's really easy for it to get messed up as well. So let's just go ahead and demonstrate it. You'll probably see live why I don't like using this unit that much in the TOA. I actually prefer using Sanhua, but if you do want her just for Weewa, well, she's pretty easy to play in Weewa. You don't really have to think too much. Let's go ahead. When it comes to this team, I typically start off with like a Camellia skill, and then you can just do a full rotation on Shorekeeper. And then intro, basic attack. And now it's time to do the mama.
Every story needs drama.
And that's why I don't like playing her. So the thing is, each of Roccia's bounces does progressively more and more damage and generates more energy and more concerto. And if you don't do all three bounces and chain them together, what will happen is that she'll get interrupted and you just have to reset it. And it's ironic that it happened on the very first time, right?
Modulation.
So we'll just have to see. You can clearly see right here, right? Why maybe this unit isn't the best TOA option. Because if you do get it all off, right? Her buffs are crazy. Her buffs are really good.
Entertain me. Let's have fun. Grafting.
That's a lot of damage. Assuming that one crit, which I don't think it did.
Let's have fun. Oath.
And then we just go ahead. And then just do it all over again. Oh, and oh, amazing. Her attack missed. She's got a lot of annoying stuff in her kit that sometimes makes me not want to play her. But, you know, she provides great buffs. Specifically to Camellia's Liberation, which Sanhua doesn't buff at all. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, there's another way to play Roccia that's possible, but not necessarily recommended. And that's with her as a main DPS. I only recommend this if you have multiple sequence nodes of her, because let's just be honest here. What we just witnessed right now was her getting smacked around for like fun. But if you do want to play her as a main DPS, you can just run this set and just, you know, kind of like go from there. You'll want to, of course, spend some time on Shorekeeper, but then also on Mortifi as well.
As you wish.
Build up his concerto too, so that when he intro skills in, does all of this good stuff.
Fury boils. Silence.
You'll just go on to Roccia, boom. And with the heavy attack buffs that Mortifi provides,
Unexpected plot twist. Performance. I'll warm up the crowd. Unexpected plot twist.
and then you just go back and you do another, you charge it up again, and then you boom, boom, you boom. And it might be like okay. Yeah, the damage is, as you can see, this is why I said I recommend sequence nodes, because the damage is like
in war with time.
it's okay.
Fury boils. Burn to ashes! Burn!
Aerial stunt. Mamma mia, avanti. The world is our stage. Mamma mia, avanti. I'll warm up the crowd.
It's like, it's alright, bro. Yeah, maybe if you got her signature. I mean, it clears, right? It clears the side tower, but like somebody's like a corpse could clear the side tower nowadays.
Astral modulation. Tornado nuclear. I'll warm up the...
It is what it is. I guess it takes a nice 4 rotations.
Worry not.
Yeah, that's unforgivably bad. Maybe you just don't play that, but we'll keep it in there for fun if you do have her sequence nodes. When it comes to gearing Roccia, typically you'll want her on either the Midnight Veil set for the Havoc buffing potential, especially if she's being used with Camellia. But if she's being used as a more general basic attack buffer for maybe like even a Brant, or feel free to use Moonlit Clouds too. That's definitely another option that'll get you a lot of mileage. But those are the main ones that I would focus on if you are grinding this unit. Moonlit Clouds is also going to make it a lot easier to reach her 130 ER sort of requirement that she has to have the smoothest rotations possible. Now it's time for us to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is going to be Changli. And, well, of course, right, using her in content like the TOA. The thing about Changli is that we're going to have to take this a bit more piecemeal, because when it comes to her rotations and how you actually use her on the battlefield, there are a couple of very, very important things you have to think about, and you basically have to like plan for across her rotations. The 2 teams that we'll be showing you today are going to be with Brant and with Zhang Li Yao. And we'll talk about not necessarily rotations, but more so things like her swap windows, because if you're not constantly swapping with this unit, sharing field time with another DPS, you're essentially playing her really, really, really badly. So with that, let's just go ahead, let's try it all out, and I'll show you a bit more about what exactly I'm talking about over here. We're not looking for like clear times or actual rotations. We're going to be talking about tech instead, and you should be able to figure out how you want to use this unit from there. But when it comes to Brant, which is the first person I'm going to be showing her off with, we'll get into some actual rotations for him. No problem at all, because he is a bit more of a, I would say, self-fulfilling or like complete unit that doesn't necessarily need to worry about some of like the more intricate details that Changli has. So with that, one thing we got to talk about over here is her true sight mechanic. So when it comes to Changli, she has 2 stacks of her resonance skill, and each of those will give true sight for a short amount of time. She also gets it from using a chain of her basic attack, and that lets her do a couple of different abilities. One, a ground strike, and second,
Make it fast.
if cast in the air or if she presses space, an air strike. And the thing is, you really want to be able to chain these abilities together. So let's just really quickly get through her kit, and then just get an intro skill ready. So now that we're here, right? If you go ahead and you get True Sight ready, there are a lot of combos you can do based off of the members that you have on your team. If Changli's only working with people that are on the ground, she'll only be able to swap into ground True Sights. But if she has people that are in the air, she can do air True Sights. And air True Sights are way better for building her forte, while you want to make sure you do a ground True Sight when you're on your 4th stack. And if you get those basic essentials of the character figured out, you'll be able to play her pretty seamlessly. So the very first thing I'm going to do over here is first charge up a True Sight, and then swap over to Brant, so that I'm in the air. When I go back to Changli, I can immediately True Sight, and then go back to her in the air, right? And then we do another True Sight. Boom, boom, boom. And unfortunately, she was still on the ground. But as long as you wait for her to disappear after casting this ability, right? We gotta wait for Changli to disappear. Next time we swap to her, she will be in the air.
Make it fast.
Now, there's a bit of an interesting mechanic that Changli has, where if you go ahead and you swap to her, you use her skill, right? Swap. If she's still on the ground, she'll appear back on the ground. And that lets her do a ground True Strike and then chain it into her Forte circuit, right? Her enhanced heavy attack. That's really, really, really helpful. Because when you're at 3 out of 4 stacks, you always want to do a ground true sight instead of an air one, because let's just use our liberation to demonstrate it, right? We have a full stack, right? If you do an air true strike, to get down to do your forte circuit, you gotta do a plunge first. And that's slower than just using, right, a ground true strike into the heavy attack. So always on your third out of fourth stack, go ahead and use a ground true strike instead, and then go into your heavy attack. So now that we've gone ahead, we've talked about a little bit of the mechanics over here. Let's put a little bit of it into practice. So I start off with the skill, right? I'm going to go on to Brant, use his liberation, right? And then now that Changli has disappeared, we're just going to swap between the two, right?
Take form.
No worries.
And then now that Brant's forte is filled, we're actually going to do this. Use our intro skill, right? Then go back to Changli. And then cast for flaming sacrifice, right? And then go from there. And we just did a double cast. This is kind of like the core mechanic of the character, is to start off with the skill, get off 2 true sights while in the air, and one of the true sights in the air has to be from an intro skill. And so you actually want to pair her with somebody that is typically able to generate concerto somewhat quickly, and it's pretty strong. If you are able to get it off in a seamless way, because you are sharing the field time with another unit like Brant. So let's just play it again one more time. And oftentimes you can actually start off your rotation. You do a Brant liberation over here, right? And then you just liberate with Changli, and then use your heavy attack, and then go back to Brant, right? You'll still have the true sight available. And you'll notice here, right? I ended up in the air for my third stack. There's a different combo you can do with this team that will make it actually a bit more seamless. That was where I used an intro skill to get my 4th stack. You never want to use an intro skill to get Changli's 4th stack. You want to use an intro skill to gain Changli's 2nd, or her 3rd, or maybe even her 1st one, but never the 4th one. And this is why. So, doing that rotation again.
Beckon the divine flame.
We're going to do a bit of this.
Perfect finale.
True sight. E.
Listen carefully.
True sight. And then go back to Brant. And you're going to notice over here, right? I get my last true sight over here. And then she's back on the ground. And then ready to do a little bit of this. And then if I had a 3rd teammate generating energy, then I would be good enough to cast my liberation again off cooldown. That is one of like the essential mechanics that she has. If you want her to have Brant's intro and have all the full buffs from that, you're just going to start off with your skill, use your liberation, right, on Brant. Then just go ahead.
Be reduced to cinders.
Use the combo.
Listen carefully.
And then while Brant is using his anchor, you swap back to her, right? Fill up Brant's concerto.
Different role.
My blade yearns.
And all of that damage is done with Brant's intro skill on.
Take form.
And now you can just go back to Brant. And now he's got his ultimate back. And then you kind of go from there. You will lose, like, field time on the other unit to get all those swaps off. But that's really what a sample one of this team looks like. When you're starting off a team's rotation like this, you'll typically not actually be on Changli, but probably on Shorekeeper to activate some Echo skill buffs. And then when you're on the ground, right, during, like, let's just say a Changli Forte Circuit cast, you'll probably sneak in a swap over to Shorekeeper to, like, generate some concerto, use her skill, do some stuff like that. But this is meant to be more of, like, an intro for how the character works, especially with a teammate like this. Brant is without a doubt her easiest teammate to work with because he provides so much of like that flexibility with the fact that he does all of his damage in the air. Now let's go ahead and talk about what it looks like with a Zhangli Yao. And this is where stuff gets a lot more complicated and it can feel a lot more clunky depending, right, on how much you're going to invest into working with this team. So let's go ahead and give this one a bit of a try. So you are always, right, going to want to start off on Changli and then you go skill, and then you do a Zhang Liao thing, right?
Exploit. Brant. Reconfiguration.
Right? You're noticing the tech that I'm using here, right?
Together we vent. No need to dwell on it.
You're noticing the tech that I'm doing there, right? I am using Zhang Liao's air jump when he uppercuts to be able to swap to Changli to do her Phoenix dive and then follow up with another skill. Let's start doing a little bit more of it with some of the tech that we were looking at before. We're going to start off on Changli. Wait for this guy to become vulnerable again. Now that he's vulnerable, let's go ahead.
Verity. Confined within limits.
Beckon the divine flames. Sever.
Exploit. Brant.
Mind's eye.
Reconfiguration.
Together we vent. Triumph through sacrifice.
Variable elimination. Reconfiguration. Complete
And that's what a
overhaul.
sample rotation looks like. And you'll notice, right? I got everything back. I got everything ready. I can kind of just go again.
Pierce through the stars.
Mind's eye.
Right? And then I would go over here, cast my liberation, do it again. If we had a shorekeeper built into the swapping over here, we'd probably have the energy for it. The idea is that when you're doing a rotation like this, I'm only focusing on the 2 units for now. In the downtime between some of the units, you're like quickly going over to a shorekeeper, right? And then swapping back to somebody else to like cast her skill. Or maybe like, you know, really get her forte off quickly. And that's where the complexity in quick swap comes from, is finding out where to squeeze in field time on your support to be able to activate things like their outro skill. And unfortunately, right, I don't want to get into like the giga sweaty mechanics of actually doing that. And that's why I'm only going to be getting into the individual dual DPS ones. And so hopefully we showed off all the different interactions and combos that these units can have at a baseline so that you can go ahead and take that to the next level. So that's going to be Changli. And of course, when it comes to Changli, right, just make sure that you're using the fusion set, which upon using a resonance skill, you get a fusion damage bonus. And also make sure you use the Nightmare Inferno Rider. Those are just going to be your best options all the time. The Nightmare Inferno Rider is also like a plunge attack too that lets her chain into her forte pretty easily. So yeah, that'll be that. Now let's move on to our final unit. On at least the anniversary banner that we'll be talking about today, we still got Ciaccona. The last unit we'll be talking about on the anniversary banner today is, of course, going to be Baranto. And Brant, ladies and gentlemen, is both a sub-DPS support, as we saw when it came to the Changli team, so we won't be getting into those advanced quickswap mechanics there. We'll be focusing on his hyper carry playstyle for this one. And boy, oh boy, is it actually very, very, very exciting. A tech that you'll do in his hypercarry teams is called dual intro, because he wants as much of his forte circuit as possible to do as many of those anchor slams as possible. And in the duration of one Sanhua outro skill, he can actually get off 2 of them. And so that's the main team comp that we'll be showing today. And Sanhua is going to be used for her basic attack buffing, which is Brant's main damage type, but then also her blazing fast rotations, which makes a double intro rotation not that bad on this unit. So with that, we're going to start it off. Very simple. Brant's going to quickly attack, and then Shorekeeper's going to go through her rotation, and then Sanhua's going to go through and then do a quick little detonation, right? Then Shorekeeper caps it all off.
Epic shot. More passion.
Brant does a quick little plunge, and then we go back onto Brant, right? Oh, dear. Scratch that. Make sure you don't get hit during your anchor or have S1. Otherwise, your attack will be canceled. So try not to make that happen. All right, so start off with a shot. Quickly swap to Shorekeeper.
Frozen block.
And then do all of Sanhua's good stuff over here.
Astral modulation.
Then we're going to stay on Brant, do his basic attack chains until he's at about 3/4 of the way there. And then swap to Sanhua, right? That'll be enough to basically cap you off. And then you're just going to, once that swap is done, just hold.
A little mishap.
Maybe do an air dodge if the enemy's about to attack you.
Finale.
But then use your liberation. and drop that second anchor. And you'll notice if I don't get hit, the ultra buff would have been remaining for about a second. We did get it on that one, though. And then you just echo skill at the end of the rotation.
Like frigid death.
And then repeat it, right? Oh, dear. Yeah, I'm kind of getting skill issued by the Inferno Rider here.
Iron graft you knew. Load.
But yeah, that's that.
A change of perception.
And so that's one anchor, and then we'll be able to show the second one. And that's that. That's the hyper carry rotation. And as you can tell, right, I'm fighting against a resistant boss, and we actually have almost destroyed him.
Blockade. Engrave.
Load astral modulation.
Epic shot. Listen carefully.
A change of perception.
More passion. Let the flames rise.
And that's what it looks like. It's actually quite easy to use. And with Sanhua having such ridiculously fast concerto generation, it's actually not really a concern for her to do double intro. Yeah, her concerto is some of the fastest in the game.
From the soul.
And what that does is it allows him, yeah, to get off 2 anchors for some big damage. And so if we do fight a boss that isn't fusion resistant, that team will do a lot more damage. That's basically what I would recommend you do on the character if you do plan on playing him hyper carry. There's really no other way to do it, and it's such a secure and stable team because Brant has a ton of like built-in shielding and his own healing, and you have a support too that's doing the same exact thing. So yeah, once you get his liberation off, you kind of just hold his button. And if you want to get sweaty with him, you play him with Changli. Check out the Changli section for that. But if you want to play him easier in hyper carry, he's fully capable of that as well. You just got to be able to double intro and hopefully have a weapon like Overture on Sanhua to streamline the energy regeneration process. If you don't have Overture, this character feels a lot more clunky in double intro, but if you do, mine's only R2. You saw how seamless that first rotation actually was. The second ones we kind of bungled a little bit, but I mean, it's Inferno Rider, so what are you gonna do about it? So yeah, that is what the Brant team is looking like. When it comes to the echoes on this team, well, there are a couple of things you really want to do. First is have Brant's signature if you do want to play him at his full potential in quick swap. If you want to play him in hyper carry, he gains enough ER from doing double anchors that like an Emerald of Genesis or like a Red Spring on Molten Rift is actually decent. But if you do want him at his full potential, play him in both possible teams, a tie-breaking courage, right? And then 250 plus ER, like a fusion damage 3 cost, that's kind of like the way to go. But do keep in mind, this is one of the most well-invested Brants, I think, on the server. This might be one of the best Brant builds like on the server. I'm straight up. I'm not even joking. We have like 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 on pretty much every single piece, and like ER on all ER and double crit on everything. This was a hard build to grind, and don't think that you need this to make him work. But if he does have all of this, he works really, really, really well. You know, you can see over here, shit ton of attack, shit ton of crit, all the good stuff, all the great stats. So yeah, that's my recommendations when it comes on the Echo side. If you are trying to play him in quick swap, please use Tide-Breaking Courage on him. Otherwise, you will never have ER to use his Liberation, and that's going to make him feel awful to use in quick swap. Time for our final unit, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be running Ciaccona, however you want me to pronounce her. You can choose any day of the week, and I'll alternate. So when it comes to Ciaccona, she actually has a couple of interesting techs in her kit that can actually make her rotations significantly faster. And so what I wanted to do was actually go through them, show you all exactly what I was talking about, and we can kind of like go from there. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. So when it comes to Ciaccona, a big part about her rotation is that it's really fucking fast. And the faster that you're able to get her third Forte Circuit stack and then use her heavy attack and then cancel it with her Liberation, the better. And what you'll notice over here is this is what it looks like just using her basic attacks for it. Decently fast, a little bit slow. This is what it looks like after a dodge counter. A little bit faster. And now this is what it looks like if you start her off in the air.
Wonders and tragedies go together.
Isn't that a little bit nuts how fast that is? Isn't that a little bit nuts how fast she gets her Forte Circuit stack when she's in the air? That's how fast it can be. So, with that in mind, when you combine this with tech like her intro skill, advancing her to stage 4, you can either do a jump or a skill cancel to actually get out that last one faster. So, let's go ahead, let's test it out, let's see what it looks like in an actual team. I always recommend using her intro skill to start off her team's rotation. So you're just going on to here, right? Oh, we got hit there. And then you would use her heavy attack, and then use her liberation, and then cancel it. You're going to notice this character is really susceptible to getting hit. And the thing is, she has a special tech built into her basic attack where dodging will not actually cancel the attack chain. So she's one of the few characters in the game where, like, dodging doesn't actively, like, grief a rotation that involves your Forte Circuit.
I engraft you new.
Let's go ahead. Let's try it out again.
For watching. Ta-da! A grand overture.
So you're going to notice here, every single time she ends up in the air, you can actually cancel out of that move with either a skill
Mind the tempo.
or a dash. You just saw me do it there. That was using a dodge. That's me using it with a skill. And that still gave me the Forte. And I almost get like a bit of a hum from the Sylph telling me that I did it right. When it comes to her general rotations, you will typically just intro skill in, get to her 4th basic attack, and then cancel it with a skill.
Thanks for watching.
And now I have 2. And you cancel the second one with a dash,
Now presenting.
and then you cancel her heavy attack with her liberation. And then you typically just have enough,
Unstoppable.
typically have a full Forte to just do the rest of it. Those are the main optimizations that you have when it comes to this unit and getting rotations out as fast as possible. But in reality, you literally only save a matter of like 1 or 2 seconds if you do actually decide to do that. And it's nice, but at the end of the day, if you don't do it, it's not a big deal. However, there's another way to use this unit that some people have been experimenting with, and I actually found out it's quite decent. So let's try it out. It's actually going to involve Ciaccona in our hypercarry teams. So let's give those a bit of a look. So, starting her off, right, is going to be pretty simple.
Like frigid death.
We're going to do the same exact tech that we just had with Brant before, right? Where
Loading.
we're going ahead and we're doing our double intros.
Thanks for watching. Ta-da! A grand Thanks for watching. Solo time.
And then we do those air attacks that I was talking about before. And then we can fit off a bunch
Let the show
of
begin.
these attacks and actually deal some pretty decent damage. Like, that is like one rotation using a like sub DPS character. Right?
Astral modulation.
Using a sub DPS character, and that's my first time ever actually doing it.
A grand frozen blockade.
The feeling.
Thanks for watching.
Perception.
Polyphony.
The pitch is lowered.
And then you just make sure that you're just constantly spamming these.
A perfect chord. Listen, the trio of destiny.
And you actually can get some pretty decent clears going on. That's just a way for you to try out this unit if you do want to try her out in hypercarry. It's actually not bad. The idea is, yeah, just spam those jump attacks. You got plenty of ways to actually get like some decent damage out of it. It's almost like you're playing like a Genshin Impact like plunge character. The thing is, just make sure you have stamina to do whatever it is you want to do. So yeah, that's another fun way for you to take a look at the overall gameplay, but it's going to be typically a lot more reliable for you to just treat her as a sub DPS in the present. And her best team is, of course, going to be with a Gian. You can check out my guide on her that just released if you want some more of like some of the advanced stuff that's going on or some of the alternative team comps that you'll be able to use. The last tech that I'll show you when it comes to Ciaccona is it's a little bit griefy, but we'll show it anyways. It is going to be her Frazzle lineup, and this one's a little bit goofy. So this is if you're supporting a character like Zani or Phoebe, specifically Zani if you're going to be using this rotation. And this one is, we don't have to worry about her stats too much. This rotation is pretty simple. Phoebe is better, but if you don't have Phoebe, you can always run this.
Diminish. Loading
You go ahead. You intro skill onto Ciaccona. You skill. You use your echo skill. You should cancel it in the air. And then you just proceed to hit your Frazzle QTEs until you're ready to rotate. Until you fill up your concerto. And then you go onto Zani, right?
Come at me.
Oh, yeah, her echo says a little bit weird. But you know what I mean. Yeah, I should usually have Capitanius. And then you just kind of do a rotation from there.
Reduced to dust. My shield can withstand more than that.
And you should actually have enough to, do a full 3 Nightfall combos if that's what you're doing. This Zani also doesn't really have a build on her right now. Say it's for gameplay purposes. But that's typically what you'll be able to do as well for a different way to rotate throughout the lineup. But yeah, Phoebe is going to be a lot better. And if you were wondering, yes, you do want Moonlit Clouds for that one. And okay, it's not that the team does no damage. My Zani is just wearing some random shit. Yeah, she doesn't even have the Eternal Radiance set, so we weren't critting on anything. Her substats actually looked okay, but she had no crit, so she missed every single one. Yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind. You definitely do have a lot of potential. You can do some fun, goofy little stuff with it. But yeah, Confession Phoebe is pretty much always going to be better for Zani. But yeah, that's going to be the last unit. Now, the last thing we have to talk about for Ciaccona is, of course, going to be the Sonata sets. And you probably already saw, if she's going to be supporting a Frazzle unit, make sure that you're using Moonlit Clouds to be able to give the Heron buff of 12% extra damage to the incoming unit, like a Zani or a Phoebe, and then also increase their attack. And the next thing that you'll also be able to do is actually go ahead and use Gusts of Welkin if you are going to be using her on an arrow team to be able to buff arrow damage. And this one over here, well, she's able to easily fully stack it up. And while she's not question mark, she still gets a nice little 10% arrow damage bonus, which is unfortunate. And we wish it could be the 20. We wish she was question mark. I wonder who this is going to be. So yeah, if she is supporting those arrow teams, go for it. But the only arrow team she really has right now is Gian. So that will be that one. All right, that's going to be our final overview of all of these different units. Like I said before, there's a lot of different teams available, a lot of different 5-star units that you're going to be able to pull, and the strength of them will be based off of some of the prior pulls that you've made on your account. That's why we did make sure to show some of the free-to-play options, as well as some of the budget sub-DPSs. And I will say, this Phase 2 is honestly a lot better than Phase 1 from the perspective of these sub-DPS supports that we're seeing over here are also really strong. And this weapon banner, once again, is one of the most broken things I've ever seen, with variation available. And while Ciaccona might not feel like the most powerful unit ever or the most useful one ever because of, well, the limited number of archetypes she supports, she is a strong, fun one to play and does have hyper carry potential too. So that is something to keep in mind if that is something you want to do in the future. I would say overall, if you want to go for her, go for it. If you want to go for any of these, I highly recommend it if you don't have these units yet, because they're very strong. They're very fun to play. I would say they're all pretty high value, except for maybe like Roccia or a Changli. Unless you're willing to learn how to play Changli and you have a Brant or a Zhangli Yao on your account. But if you don't have any of those options, Changli's just not really going to feel that good. I don't recommend her if you don't have Brant or Zhang Liao. And if you do use her with Zhang Liao, you're going to have to play a lot more sweaty than you do when you have her with Brant. And when it comes to Roccia, well, she feels like shit in the TOA, and Weewa has gotten a lot easier, so she's not that much useful. She's not like that much more useful there than, you know, other specific characters. The last thing I will note is that when it comes to Weewa, Changli is much easier to play in that game mode. You kind of just build up Forte stacks on her. You don't even need to swap and then use her heavy attack and blow stuff up. She doesn't really require any guide at all to operate in that game mode. She's pretty easy to use. But yeah, that'll be our final coverage of all of this. Let me know what you all think. Peace.